I'm gonna undo my
Okay.
my belt and my top button.
Sure.
I do this in
Fine. All right.
I do this in cinemas because I've got quite a small bladder, and but then it's fine because obviously you're in the dark, no one gives a shit. I mean, you know, the 1 second that someone looks at you and you're fiddling around with your button, people are like, okay. Especially if you're with someone. Well, actually, is it? Especially if you're with someone.
No,
else?
if you're alone, it's way worse.
Okay, fair enough. And then whenever I stand up at the end of a film, like I watched Tar recently.
Right, I really want to see it. Is it good?
It's incredible.
Yeah, okay.
Right up until the point where I stand up at the very end and like fiddling around with my belt, and the person I was with is like, "The lights are up now." I went, well, what else am I going to do? Just walk out like...
Yeah, with it just hanging around.
Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Bam.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
And we're in for a big boy episode today.
Oh, yes. It's a chonky one.
It's a chonky boy. We're going to do... God, we sound like radio hosts there.
That's
It's a chonky boy.
What is a podcast if it isn't a scripted, like, okay, yeah, we don't have the little button press... going on this Wednesday, you know. But I mean, like, you know, what's the difference really beyond a potential half-hearted script?
Yeah,
you know?
we are doing all 10 episodes of Phyrexia. All will be one.
So, funnily enough, I got to a week, and I think you noticed this when I started speaking to you last week. Like because we've known about all of the names for so long, genuinely. In my mind, March of the Machine is kind of what this set is like, right? Because it's them marching into the multiverse, and then All Will Be One feels more like a culmination. So the fact that it's All Will Be One is this set, and March of the Machine is actually the next set.
But All Will Be One is this set, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, All Will Be One is this set, even though yeah, whatever. Regardless of actual perceived semantics, beyond perceived semantics, this set is All Will Be One, even though I feel like the two names should have been the other way around.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Cool.
It's fine.
First critique. All right, we're doing all 10 episodes. We're doing the 5 main stories and the 5 side stories. And, I mean, can I call this a golden age of Magic writing? Are we allowed to say that now, or are we still hurting from War of the Spark era collectively?
Better. We've come back. I like to say we've come back to the kind of storytelling that we deserve.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I took a drink. That sounds like the kind that we deserve. Well, now that begs the question: what do we deserve?
I thought like this is at a base rate, because I mean, it's still not without fault and without critique and without some question marks. And I think from a stylistic and delivery point of view, I think it's doing well. I think from what the actual content is, you can pick apart some decisions, some like, you know, descriptives, that kind of thing, like that, you know, might be questionable, but you know, the things that Reddit loves to like call out. But I think in terms of how the story is being delivered, we're coming towards that same part we did with War of the Spark before it all got fucked up by all these novels, of being like, good, we've got a steady pace, we seem to have a good projection, everyone's kind of caught up with everything, it's being delivered in a pace I feel like is acceptable. They're showing good sides to characters. I feel like we're not getting like misrepresentations. There's not just throwaway lines every now and again. Like, I don't know, it feels more, do I say the word? It feels more complete.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right then. So yeah, we're gonna do it all in one episode.
Yeah.
We have split these down in the past, but we thought, screw it, we're gonna go for it. And there's a lot going on here, and a lot of like we'll go into obviously each story individually. Well, for the side stories we definitely will, but the authors that they've brought back for some of these are pretty impressive. It has been like a who's who of like recent Magic story, and it's actually really interesting to see them back to back, but we will get to the side stories. The main stories are headed up by Shauna Maguire, also known, and this is me reading from the bio on the Mothership, also known as Mira Grant and A. Deborah Baker. Shauna Maguire is an award-winning author of short stories, novels, comics. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with far too many cats and skeletons. And we know Shauna Maguire in terms of Magic stories, because they're the ones who penned Tangles, Dance of Undeath, and Homecoming. Tangles obviously being one that we really loved and did an actual episode dedicated to on its own. I mean, I'm going to do a very brief overview, and this one genuinely will be brief. But, I mean, how are we feeling about Shauna Maguire in general?
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, I like that they've clearly seen someone who can handle different, like, character like character-led stories. Being like Tangles, for example, showing a really good example of how we see both Ren and we see Teferi, their perspectives, how they interact with each other. And this is one of the stories we lauded because it was really interesting seeing these two very different Planeswalkers interacting. And we've kind of had these like Saturday morning TV show kind of versions of Planeswalkers and their voices and the way that, decidedly male kind of, we've had lines like that before where which kind of undermines the character of a lot of the Planeswalkers and people we've seen over the course of years. So the fact that they've given them a cast of 12-ish, like if we don't consider non-Planeswalker characters, and then it's kind of good to see them do a couple of things. Like also Homecoming was a really good example of seeing Liliana Vess's voice kind of with the Raven Man and how the two of them kind of interacted. I mean, if there is someone out there who's doing this kind of like, okay, what's the best way of representing this story? They've really looked at people that know how to speak effectively, because there's a lot of talking in these. There's a lot of dialogue between characters. We're not looking at remind me of the Zendikar Rising author, the guy who did all of the when we went back to Zendikar.
Yes.
Really, really good environmental description.
Miguel Lopez?
Yes, Miguel Lopez. Thank you.
I've got to look that up.
So it is. I say this confidently because you sparked a memory in my brain. But so he's really good at like descriptive and like location based narrative, whereas clearly Shonen's shown like a penchant or penchant, however you want to pronounce it. For
penchant.
Yeah, I don't. Right, so this is one thing I'm going to make an aside. For years, I was under the impression this was a French word and you're supposed to pronounce it penchant, and everyone I ever see it saying it ever is always penchant. And so in my mind, it niggles me and it icks me because I'm pretty sure it's penchant, but apparently it's not. It's penchant, and I don't know. Anyway, they've clearly got a good voice for voices, and this of all stories really needed that. So I think it was a really good selection.
Yeah, I agree. It's we do have Miguel Lopez coming back to do one of the side stories, and I think that really sort of shines through. I can't find it.
I'm also 100% sure it is.
Oh no, you're gonna hate me. It's AC Greenblatt.
Fuck.
It's alright, but no.
Was it not the side stories?
Miguel Lopez did the Brothers War.
Did he not do the side story? The one where they're flying the Akiri side story.
Oh, they did the Magosi Steps.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
that's what I meant. There we go. Good.
Right.
Because that's the bit I remember is when
and
Akiri's...
the red route and the Magosi Steps.
Yeah. So when he's drifting, when they're drifting through the sky clays, that was the bit I remember being like, man, this is really intense, like chunky writing that I know a lot of people maybe find a bit more annoying to grok, but it allows me to sink into a story when I can feel the flow of the writing really describing the environment. And as much as we went through 9 spheres within this story, arguably we skipped a couple of them or whatever, but as much as the environment's important, the dialogue between the characters is actually probably the most important here, where you're trying to balance all of these different voices from different planes, all having different perspectives and understandings and different, what's the word, like hierarchies almost, like who's the most important person in a conversation? Is it Jace, is it Kaya, is it Nahiri? Like that's quite difficult to balance, and I feel like for the most part it was done very well. Yeah,
very good memory. Cool. Alright, let's do the little blow-by-blow of the main storylines. I tried to keep this to 2 sentences per one, because we've got a lot to get through, and presumably you have read, dear listener, these stories before listening to this episode, or at least the main story ones. So, just as a prelude to this, so I don't have to do exposition in my explanation, so I'll do a prelude, which is the same amount of time anyway. This is the Planeswalker Task Force that we saw at the end of the side stories of the Brothers' War, going to New Phyrexia to use the Silex made by Saheeli to blow up New Phyrexia before the invasion starts, an invasion they know is coming, and they have a rough idea of things like the Realmbreaker tree, and this is literally the party planeswalking into New Phyrexia. So, episode 1 opens up with the Planeswalker Task Force, who are scattered immediately by some sort of Phyrexian failsafe on entering the plane. So there's some kind of magical force field. They never really flesh it out, but the party of Planeswalkers is scattered across the plane, and these stories focus on Kaito, Kaya, Nahiri, and Tyvar, with the Wanderer also there, but the Wanderer's spark is now playing up again, and is kind of phasing her in and out of the plane. These Planeswalkers find themselves on the beaches of New Phyrexia, whilst their comrades are spread across everywhere else. They meet up with a Mirren resistance cell led by a healer called Malira, who is resistant to the Phyrexian oil and Phyresis and also can heal others. And that becomes quite important throughout the story as to when she does and doesn't use that power. And the first story focuses on them meeting up and going to the furnace layer of New Phyrexia to meet up with another Mirren cell. Episode 2, we have Elspeth and Jace join the party, and Koth is still alive. Hype, and Elspeth and Koth have their moment of sort of seeing each other from the previous Phyrexian and Mirrodin arcs, which is all very nice and heartwarming. And the Planeswalker party with the Mirren Resistance Cell plan a sort of path to go deeper into the layers of New Phyrexia to try and complete their mission. We have a lot of really cool back and forths with Jace and the other Planeswalkers, not really sure how much they want to give the Mirrens in terms of, this Silex might destroy New Phyrexia and therefore Mirrodin, and they don't know whether they can trust the Mirrens with this information because they still want to help them. And then we see a lot of, what I loved about these stories, to kind of immediately dive into critique in the middle of my explanation, is that a lot of these stories did a really good job of showing how regular, non-Planeswalky people are sometimes more, willing to sacrifice the boundaries of the multiverse than the Planeswalkers are, which is kind of interesting. In episode 3, the party travels to the Dross Pits lair, which is the black-aligned sort of Sheldon and the rest of the Thanes. It's their lair. And we discover that Vraska is in a Phyrexian arena, being attacked by a bunch of Phyrexians, and that she is also tainted by Phyrexia herself. Jace is psychically linked to her. He was meant to be linked to all of them, but the Phyrexian barrier knocked that out. Nahiri at this point has also been tagged by Phyrexians. She was tagged in the first story, but her kind of completion hasn't come fully round, whereas Vraska's 80% there by the time they get to her. Jace, because he loves Vraska, obviously, tries to save her, putting the rest in danger, the rest of their party. The rest of the party do eventually escape, and Vraska, succumbing to Phyrexia, is given one last mercy by Jace, showing them a life they could have had on Ravnica and an illusion. The illusion is ended when now a fully completed Vraska, I shouldn't laugh really, attacks Jace and, well, not even attacks, sort of surreptitiously stabs him.
Stabby.
Spikes him with Phyrexian oil because,
poke.
It's really heartbreaking. I know we're making light of it.
Yeah,
it's
really
terrible.
horrible.
That's episode 3. So Jace is now got the glistening oil coursing through his veins. He rejoins the rest of the party, knowing that Vraska is kind of beyond saving, because he's the only one in his mind that can sort of detonate the Silex. And now they have an injured Jace, no Vraska, a Phyrexianized, soon-to-be Nahiri, and a whole bunch of other shit going on. Nahiri, at the end of that story, uses her lithomancy to blast a hole through the ground of the Dross Pit into the kind of sky, the ceiling of the
Great Basilica.
the porcelain. What's it called?
Is it not the Great Basilica?
Oh my gosh.
Fair Basilica.
Fair Basilica, there we
Fair
go.
Basilica.
Which also allows a bunch of black-aligned Phyrexians to start pouring into the white-aligned sphere and basically stoking the fires of the civil war that Urabrask and Sheoldred in the Thanes, and basically all of the non-Elish Norm Praetors are all gagging for this kind of big civil war that's kind of spilling over. So now we have the Planeswalkers in the Fair Basilica. Nahiri's nowhere to be found because they assume that she's been caught under the rubble. And they carry on with their plan. In episode 4, the remaining team start to work their way to the heart of Elish Norn's domain with the Silex, and discover the Realmbreaker tree is ready to start the invasion. Tyvar kind of loses his nut over this because obviously it's a bastardization of the World Tree from his home plane of Kaldheim. Jace's completion is sort of constantly threatening to take hold, and by this point he really should have been turned, but by sheer force of will he's kind of carrying on. Malira, as we were sort of saying earlier, is a healer, but with all of the Planeswalkers that have been tagged so far, they're not in a position where they can rest and stop. This whole 5 episodes is just one mad dash from the surface down. They barely have time to catch their breath, let alone heal from Phyresis. So there's lots of her and the other Planeswalkers who are being tagged going, well, I could be healed, or we could complete the mission. So there's lots of sort of self-sacrifice going on. Along the way, Tybalt and Ajani, now fully completed, arrive, and Tyvar and Elspeth respectively face their foes. So we get to see the culmination of Tybalt's Vorinclex seed.
Yeah, his seeded by Vorinclex.
Seeded by Vorinclex, which
never sounds any better.
It was one line in Kaldheim that everyone, well, not even everyone, I think we even commented on this, how many people just kind of glossed over it.
Yeah.
But it was noticed where everyone went, Tybalt's got a Phyrexian seed, and then it's just never mentioned again.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since.
And now he's back, and he's all Phyrexianized and looking
Doesn't
more
even
devilish.
get a card.
Does he not? He's on a couple of cards.
He's on a card. Well, he's in a couple of artworks. Well, there was a very telling artwork, right, that was kind of shown of Tyvar, kind of like, what was it? What's it called? What was the Undertaker's move? The choke slam. That's it.
Yeah, he's got
exactly.
a choke slam. And then Ajani has come back and he's like fully porcelain armoured and fully Elish Norned
Looks
up.
fucking sick.
Yeah, the artwork is pretty damn good. I mean, it's worth him dying just to get that kind of look for him, I think.
It's worth him dying anyway. Boring fuck.
Who cares about Johnny?
Wow.
Tyvar and Elsbeth fight off against their foes. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. The Mirrans, by the remaining Planeswalkers in Episode 5, time to get to the centre of the World Tree, or the Realm Breakers they're calling it. Kaito, Jace, and Kaya at this point, so they can detonate the Sylex. But Kaya and Kaito, at the pivotal moment when they should just blow up the Sylex, start to understand that if the Realmbreaker tree is connected already to the rest of the planes, and it's just the physical invasion that's yet to start, if the Sylex goes off, could that blast not go beyond even... They thought it could just be the core of New Phyrexia, and then they're like, well, it could be the whole plane. Well, if it could be the whole plane, can it not extend into the multiverse, and even maybe the actual blind eternities themselves? So they have a sort of crisis of conscience, whether they think what they're going to do is right. They face off against Jace, and Jace being convicted in his plan to detonate the Sylex, and seconds away from turning to Phyrexia, starts the process to blow up the Sylex. Just as Kaya and Kaito fail to stop Jace in his mission, Elspeth and Tyvar burst through out of nowhere, seemingly having defeated Tybalt and Ajani, because we kind of left those battles... we saw Tybalt get killed, but the Ajani-Elsbeth battle we left on a cliffhanger. And Elsbeth swoops in with the detonating Sylex and planeswalks away. We know not where. We don't even know if she gets to another plane. It could just be in the Blind Eternities themselves, and basically absorbs... Well, it is presumed, because we don't see the body, it is presumed that she absorbs the Sylex blast where it can't detonate anywhere else. Then they don't have a traditional prologue like a lot of these things are, but the last scene that we see are the remaining defeated planeswalkers basically being routed by Elish Norn, a now fully Phyrexianized Jace with a Halo sword, Luxor, buried in his chest, much echoing the kind of alternate reality artwork that we saw, which was a nice little nod. Yeah. The What If artwork. He's now fully gone. We have Tamio showing up against Elish Norn's side, and now also Nissa, who in these main 5 stories we didn't see at all, and has now turned up fully Phyrexianized.
That's true. Yeah, if you don't read any of the side stories, Nissa showing up is just a kind of like, hello.
Yeah, like, what the fuck?
And Elish is like, look, I made besties, and it's Neri and Nissa like looking at each other like, yes, Queen Slay.
Yeah. Also the Phyrexian invasion starts.
Oh yeah, and then there's that moment at the end where she's like,
then the machines start marching.
Will be one, and she's like, what's the line? With that, Elish Norn raised her hand, clicking her perfect claws together, and the invasion began. Yeah.
Cool. So like we were saying this before we started recording, and I think I mentioned it there. It is 5 episodes, but it really is just one one mad dash. Yeah. Like from start to finish, it's like boom, we're in the plane. We need to get from here to here. It's like a reverse. Was it Judge Dredd and The Raid? All those films where they have to get from floor 1 to floor 75.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around
instead of an ascent.
Yeah. They've got like a descent all the way down to the bottom. We know what the plan is, and actually, I think what I really liked about, and I think was maybe a kindness for Sean Maguire, is that they got given a set of stories that they could just focus on one goal, because a lot of the setup got given to other writers. So I think there was a lot of legwork done to make this story slick. We don't need to know what the plan is. I mean, obviously they do reiterate it during the course of the stories because they're debating as to what the right course of action is. But if you've been keeping up with the story and this section, some story arcs you can kind of jump into, and if you're new to Magic, this isn't one of them, I don't think. But that's a good thing, because we just want to see the story moving forwards now. We have had a couple of sets, if you count Brothers War and even Dominaria United, that have a lot of exposition, but we've known this has been coming for a while.
Yeah.
We need to start cracking on.
You're like, but the invasion. Yeah. And there were 2 parts of this that I think still kind of a massive like bugbears for me in terms of like as a whole. And this continues if I end up getting into like a little debate on Reddit, as you always do, as any purveyor of Reddit, you end up debating with everyone about everything. But one of the things I was saying was like that it's annoying that you don't get just once a week kind of updates on story, because what you could have done is you could have had a weekly episode that kind of shows them making the plan together, because I feel like there was two things missing from this, and there was one that was when everything started going to shit, it kind of showed immediately like they didn't have a contingency, and we didn't see what discussions they had for what they were planning to happen, of what they, you know, again having some fail safes if this didn't happen. It kind of they got really, really, really lucky that the amount that their plan failed wasn't greater, because they're being scattered randomly throughout the 9 spheres to have to then meet up together. Like it very, I don't understand how they even managed to put the plan back together as a semblance of the former plan. You know, like they got lucky. Elspeth even said in the first episode, you know, when they initially impacted and they hit that top layer, the what is it, the facade, whatever the top layer is called. The glorious facade, the monumental facade. The sand there almost like puts you in a stupor of where it's not an active threat, but it pacifies you to the point of where the other Phyrexians then come and kill you. And like even Elspeth said, like, oh, it's a good thing they didn't arrive soon. I'm like, don't point out the narrative flaws. Like, don't have your characters kind of go like, hey, this is a lucky thing that didn't happen, because then it just kind of shows the audience like, well, yeah, but that is a very lucky thing that happened. Like, interesting.
I don't know. I think there was so much work done in these stories and in the side stories to show just how fucking dangerous New Phyrexia is. The air can kill you. The sand isn't sand, it's just bits of metal, and all the metal is also Phyrexianized, you know, so you're basically breathing in all the phyresis. The dross pits are full of toxic gas that can do it. The fucking air, like the sort of your vision around you can trick you into thinking you're somewhere else. Like that whole sequence where Kaito, because it's from his perspective in the first episode, thinks that New Phyrexia looks beautiful, because to
it's convincing
him, and also, but like to, you know, his kind of confused mind, the kind of there's like crashing of the waves, and he sort of sees birds up ahead, and he feels the beach, and obviously when he comes to a bit more, he realizes these are all bastardizations and Phyrexianized versions of what he's seeing. But it's, you know, it's showing you that the edge between thinking that Phyrexia is this wonderful thing as like a philosophy versus it being the horror that you can sort of see. Like we've had touches of it with planeswalkers like Ajani and Tamio still speaking as themselves, just with a bent of going
with the voice of
Phyrexia.
Yeah.
Tamio still talks about family. Ajani still talks about pride. They're just doing it for a different thing. Unified.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think that everything's so lucky and they could have fallen at any time, and you know, stop pointing it out because it makes it seem like they're just kind of falling with style. I sort of feel like that's true, and that's the point.
Yeah, I guess it does demonstrate very clearly like how damned the entire thing is from the get-go. I guess also it does follow suit that we kind of felt like it was a little rushed towards the end of the last story arc, of where we're like, Rabrask is like, well, his resistance and his is happening in the next, like, it's happening tomorrow. We haven't got any time to plan. So it kind of does, like, if you read these back to back, it does have this kind of feeling of, we have no time to plan, this is happening tomorrow, we need to do it now, and then the story starts and they're already kind of hitting a plane and everything goes to disarray immediately.
Yeah.
It also kind of does do this thing of propping, if you weren't already aware of how much of a threat Phyrexia is, and if we did have, again, that underlying criticism of where was this slow impending doom.
Yeah, Dominaria United was very rushed.
There were a couple of like points across the last few years where we kind of felt it didn't have, in the same way that people complained that the Nicobolas arc took too long to happen, even though it had all these nice little pieces that all joined together, you know, with the Immortal Sun and all that kind of thing, like, that took too long and was too plinky-plonky, whereas this kind of felt like it condensed it, but it kind of created, this perspective of there's nothing you can do, everything is terrible, and it's only going to get worse the further you descend. If anything, I guess I just wanted more, like, immediate loss, because it would have given a greater credence, like, the threat's proven, but then actually within the first, like, few stories, and also they released these across a week. This didn't happen week on week for a month and a half like it would have happened in the past. This all happened across the span of like 10 days. Once the Planeswalkers started dropping, it was every story one was dropping and one was dropping. Like, the fact that Nahiri, and it's mentioned in that first story, and this is one thing that I think is really, really good, is they showed like power levels and power disparity really well in these stories, of where Nahiri's lauded by the other walkers of being like, wow, all these things she's doing, she's barely even breaking a sweat. She is the one of the oldest, if not the oldest walkers around us. Like, she's got the strongest amount of power, to the point of where she says, I don't want you to heal me, Melira, because Melira notices and says to her, like, oh, you had the look of someone who was still convincing themselves they could still be okay, kind of thing. So trying to hide the fact that they'd been tainted. And Nahiri goes, there's not enough time. Like, you need me so badly that we need to just continue. There's not enough time for me to take 3 days recovering, and if you try and kill me now, you will not succeed. Yeah. So let's just carry on with the plan, because that's the best chance of success.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of that. And also there was a whole debate when they were sort of showing, look, these are the Planeswalkers that are going to be in this story arc, in this kind of section of the story. 10 of them. 5 of them are going to fall. Like, oh, you were upset about Ajani, oh, you're upset about Tamio.
Yeah,
5 of these
don't
fuckers
hold
are
on
go.
to any of your loves, because they're all going to fucking
and
fall.
And it can be any of them. Like, and people were trying to think of theories, were like, well, they're not going to get rid of Jace because he's the poster boy, or they're not going to get rid of Vraska, or like, blah, 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 or like, whatever the things were. But they didn't count on the idea of just looking at who, I mean, I'm sure someone did, because like, with an infinite amount of typewriters and infinite amount of monkeys, we're all going to write the correct answer. But I very rarely saw people looking at things like, well, Mirrodin is a plane of metal and like ore. Out of the planeswalkers that are going on this task force, who is the most powerful in that setting? Well, it's Nahiri.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the most likely one that they're going to bump off to not just make them go, and Nahiri exploded the plane, because she could fucking do that.
That's the
and
thing,
it's like, well, of course they're going to get her like Phyrexian eyes. Like, she blew a hole through a layer like it was nothing. I mean, and so they have to get rid of her in the story. So it's really cool that they did that.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that she obviously tried to do this as an act of like self-sacrifice. I think she dropped the entire Phyrexian arena, because that's what it is. It's a real rebuild. We've seen this in the Commander Collection Black set of where it was a Sheoldred version of the Phyrexian arena, and it's also confirmed to be the same arena that Koth's fighting in the Phyrexian arena that we got from a few years back, where people were like, oh shit, Koth's still alive. It's like, yeah, and they even mentioned, he was like, oh, I barely escaped the last time I was within the arena. And obviously the Vraska, we don't actually know what I like to call the timeline of fate of a couple of the walkers, in terms of like, we know that Nissa arrived with Jace, and then some trap caused her to planeswalk away further.
Yeah.
Now, what that to me, which isn't said, which will bring me around in a second to point number 2 of things that were missing from this that I think really should have been in there. So I imagine there was a trap or something that forced her to move to a different place, because they want to complete Nissa, because Nissa's really, really important in pushing the Realm Breaker and pushing it into the other planes. I think that need of like leyline manipulation, I think that's what they wanted Nissa for from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason why they honed in on her, and why she's the only one apart from the Wanderer who blipped once they'd already landed, because they must have held onto her spark, or identified her, or scanned her, or whatever, and gone, we need her, let's take her down and convert her. Apart from that, Vraska's the only one we don't know, like, when she arrived. We don't get a point of view of her. All we get is when Elspeth starts passing around these vials of Halo, which apparently, Luxior can generate more Halo. Jace kind of gets this almost like reboot to his system, and it's like a resurgence, and he can then reconnect to everyone, immediately feels Vraska's pain, immediately reconnects, immediately reminds all of the audience of why we were shipping them so hard by the end of Ixalan, because their connection, we haven't seen the two of them together properly since War of the Spark, and even that was pretty ham-fisted by the end of it. Oh, we'll agree to stay apart for the safety of each other. Shut up, none of the fans want that. You're in love. You fucking love each other. Of course you do. He's willing to damn the rest of the multiverse for his love for Vraska. That's actually way more relatable than having them, be like platonic or whatever. So that was one of the ones that was interesting that we didn't get to see when Vraska first arrived, and then the process. But it is mentioned again that the Necrogen air naturally starts to convert you. So as soon, I think it's in a flavor text on one of the cards as well, like the taint happened immediately for Vraska. As soon as she was split down to the dross levels, there was no hope for her. Yeah. Because it was automatically going to start the process, because she didn't have the access to Halo that Elspeth did. Whether they should have all done a bit of Halo before descending into New Phyrexia,
yeah, this is something, the Halo thing specifically, just to touch on that, because it was only touched on really in the story. So we had a whole arc of Elspeth on New Capenna, and a whole thing about this substance, and obviously it being the kind of magical MacGuffin of New Capenna, like the ether in Kaladesh or whatever. This idea of Halo, this substance that could be consumed, that a lot of things are sort of like surreptitiously made out of, that the angels like bestowed on, and then you have Giada, who's an angel who can produce more, and she's the fountain, and all this kind of stuff. The whole story was based on that. And I know obviously stories just need to have some sort of crux to make the characters move about. But it did sort of seem like Halo was going to be like this fucking weapon against Phyrexia. And then this story arc, they down a couple of vials as a tincture to kind of ward off the phyresis of the Dross pits. They said it wasn't going to work too well. It keeps Jace about for a little bit longer. And then even when Elspeth fucking stabs Jace through the chest with the sword, with the halo in the hilt,
Nothing happens.
Nothing really happens. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going on further. And I know that in the Brothers War side stories, the sword was pretty badass in the battle.
Yeah.
So it has done something. But you know when you're just like, that was like a whole, like, fuck, Ellsworth's found this thing.
It was almost like that was the whole point of that entire set was...
Getting Halo.
Urabrask was mounting a resistance, and we need to get the Halo to maybe... And I guess we don't know what the Halo is going to be doing in the future. The Halo might be the point that helps return some of the less Phyrexianized walkers back to being, their normal selves, or at least, neutralize the Phyrexian spread. There are some that I don't think will come back, like Ajani, for example. I think now with Cinnamon his new armor, I think it's probably pretty obvious that we can't go back. Same maybe with Vraska, because now she's got a full Gorgon tail going on, and I don't know
that's interesting. We'll talk about that.
I don't know if there are legs under there or not. So I think there might be a point, and the fact that Elspeth herself, to skip to the end and kind of like start theory crafting what's happening with the end of the story, like the fact that she jettisoned herself into the blind eternities with a detonating Silex, with all these question marks over her whether or not she is actually an angel or not an angel, and like there are so many like kind of question marks around it that make me feel like this isn't the end of Halo. It was almost like a false failure. Like it did enough to keep Jace around to kind of fulfill his role within the story. It didn't exactly act as like this can stop things right now, because the whole point of this set was the Phyrexians need to succeed. No matter what the Planeswalkers do, no matter how good their plan was, which I guess undermines we should have had a better plan, they should have had more contingency. From a narrative point of view, this set needed the Planeswalkers to fail. They needed to have at least 5 of them, get completed by the end of it, and they needed to feel like by the end of the 5 episodes, the way back was nigh on impossible. And there needed to be a grandiose, extra trump from the good side to be able to then take to kind of bring us back to either a neutrality or to defeat the Phyrexians 100%. So it's understandable. There was also kind of like, it felt a little bit undermining to the Halo that a couple of episodes beforehand we get the Hex Gold. Yeah. Which is another MacGuffin. I mean, Magic is a game of MacGuffins, let's be honest. It's setting up ridiculous fantasy villains, ridiculous fantasy adversaries, and the only way to do this is to have your, good guy MacGuffins that, magically save the day and fix things. So the Hex Gold, I guess, was kind of like, I expected Halo to be a step up from that. But Halo kind of just felt like a similar sidestep of like, oh, we've got the Hex Gold for your armor, and then we've also got the Halo to protect you.
I think the Hex Gold was a nice way to have Tyvar involved, because they obviously had a set of Planeswalkers where they're either planning to do stuff with them in the future, so they want them to kind of be the new crop, or they have like fan favorites.
Kaito Wanderer, for example.
Kaito Wanderer, yeah. I mean, Tyvar, interestingly, out of the Kaldheim stories, he could have very easily just been like the Planeswalker of the set. Do you know what I mean? Like the new guy, and then because my wifey, Arlene Cord, as much as she's come back in Innistrad sets, she hasn't really been anywhere else, except for World of Spark. Whereas Tyvar was a bit of a breakout star.
Yeah.
I mean, infinitely fanciful.
Everyone loves his shirtliness.
Well, yeah, and he's also sexy as shit in this set of stories. But it was a way to have him be involved, because he transmutes, aside from being buff and heroic and swashbuckly with a sword and all that kind of shit, his magic, his mage power is that he transmutes material. Yeah. So it was
actually quite useful.
Really useful on a plane of metal.
Yeah.
And I think like Nahiri could have been OP, but if they gave him a really specific... His thing is the Hex Gold.
That's true. He is kind of like Nahiri light. Like the same thing. If you look at like Nahiri, Koth, and Tyvar, they all kind of do a similar aspect of things.
Yeah, they even mention it in the story.
Yeah, one's stone, one's metal. I think the mention is that I think Kaio's like saying like, oh, because Koth's a Geomancer and Nahiri's a Lithomancer. Don't ask me what the difference is.
Malira says
that's it. Yeah, exactly. So there is even a point of like, okay, so what is the? And I even thought this halfway through the stories with Kaito. I was like, shit, I don't even remember what Kaito's ability actually is. Oh, he's got like some degree of telepathy. Telekinetic. Which works because, again, not being able to touch the metal, but being able to control the metal, really important in a world where the metal immediately can corrupt you.
Yeah.
So I think like there was a degree of like, why the fuck are all of these people here, kind of thing. And you know, we'll get around to Luca and whether or not he's the only one who's maybe still got a question mark behind him. But I think a lot of people expected either one or the other of the Wanderer or Kaito to get completed because it then creates a greater narrative incentive for the other one to want to fight. But both of them ended up kind of getting out of it in the right way. I think one of the greatest things about this set is the Kaito Tyvar bromance. And so many people are on board with this. This is really interesting. Again, two characters I think individually, outside of their plane, we don't know what they're like. We've seen them on their plane, and for both of them, like, you're like, okay, they're both just like, you know, like duty kind of fanboys, you know? Kaito just really, really, really simps on the Wanderer. Fair enough. So do a lot of people. And then everyone simps on Tyvar because who can blame the muscles? Yeah. So, but the two of them together actually created this kind of bromance where it's like, I've only known this bromance has existed for 5 minutes, but I will kill everybody in this room and myself if it was to break up again.
Yeah, like they got paired off. I mean, what I really liked about Tyvar's characterization in general is that he is so from Kaldheim. Like, the other
I
players...
am so from Kaldheim.
But, like, in terms of... So, I don't, this might be like real magic wankiness, but this is what this exact podcast is for. If you look at other planeswalkers specifically in terms of where they're from as a home plane and how they behave, a lot of them, it has to be said, can be very interchangeable.
Very much so, yeah.
Just because it'd be impossible to have like someone from fucking Tovolar or Amonkhet just, you know, be so tuned into that.
That Tovolar, I mean Innistrad.
Oh, Tovolar is from Innistrad.
Tovolar is the plane.
He is a character from Innistrad, and he's a werewolf and not a planeswalker. Okay, I secede from the podcast. I have no idea.
You could be from Tovolar. There might be a plane of Tovolar out there. It's an infinite multiverse. It's fine.
There is a plane which is similar. I'm not getting into it anyway. So, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, it'd be hard to put them in any other story because blah blah blah. Where if you look at Tyvar, who comes from a plane where it's a very diverse plane in terms of race, because they've got 10 realms each with their own sort of racial structures. It's a very diverse plane in terms of like the abilities of those people and how they conduct themselves. But the one unifying thing, and we said this in our episodes, and it was a really big line through, is it's about the story of heroism and about the strength of your heart and character in those stories. It's like morality is kind of grey. We forget that Tyvar is black aligned. He's green and black aligned. So like morality is kind of a fluid thing, but it's about being like swashbuckly and having that kind of haha aspect. And so to have Tyvar being in this situation and being on board of the plan or disagreeing with characters or whatever else, like he's met this completely alien planeswalker for a plane that couldn't be more different than his own, Kamigawa, and a Kamigawa in Neon Kamigawa territory, right? He's a ninja rather than a straight-up warrior, which, you know, could be a thing. He's a completely different physical build, the whole shebang. Completely different, and yet he knows Kaito has, like, a sense of, like, strength and is, like, a warrior, and is also himself a bit of a swashbuckler. Kaito's not a dry character.
No, not
and he instantly gravitates towards him, and he instantly calls everyone else friend if they're on his side, and he's just so, like, just everything about him.
Good. He's a smart... Every time he's in a scene, let's call them scenes, every time he's in a scene, you're just like, oh, it's alright, Tyvar's here.
But, like, he is fucking Kaldheim.
Yeah, he is, yeah. And that's the thing, I
and
guess...
it's really cool how they kept that.
And I think it's also really cool that everyone's like, why is he here? And then they've really grounded this idea of, like, the idea that he's so like abhorrent of the Realm Breaker because it's a twist on the World Tree, you know. And every time anyone mentions the World Tree, he goes, you know, it's like it's not the World Tree, it's their World Tree, and it's not. He doesn't even like calling it that, you know. He calls it a bastard. He doesn't use the word bastardization, obviously. He's I think he used the word perversion or something at one point. But it's also interesting that these are two black aligned characters.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And they're
blue-black,
going it alone. And you have this feeling. What's really great is you have it against like the moment when they square off against Tibalt and Ajani. You know, for all of the writing fantasy action is blah, 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 whatever. I feel like my eyes fade as I try and look down for the next bit of dialogue because that's the bit that's more interesting. It's like, oh, they clash, bang, wallop, great, cool, fantastic. Things happen, stuff and things. But the two of them being able to be this united front of... I guess it's in the face of an oppressive white antagonist, right? Because Norn is still... Because as much as we say, like, within the story, we see all of these resistances, there's a massive talk about how Sheoldred still fights against her, how Urabrask is having this resistance, but there are still cards where there are images, and we'll get probably to this in when we get to the Flavor Picks episode, of where Norn's like got like a decree, and she's talking to all of the other praetors, and they're all like, you know, showing subservience to her, apart from Urabrask, who's obviously, you know, in his own Furnace Layer. Like, so as much as that's kind of at odds sometimes, you are fighting Norn and her plane. She is the closest. The Fair Basilica is the closest to the mycosynth, is the closest to the seed core. Being the closest to the mycosynth means it was the most infused and the most readily infused as it spreads outwards. I think the fact that the furnace layer is the outermost layer, the most close to Mirex, being like the X-Mirren. They didn't come up with a very good name for it. The X-Mirren layer. I think is really telling, and then it goes down towards the Hunter's Maze, then Surgical Bay, then because Sheoldred, as much as the Thanes and everything and being in battle with each other and being at odds against Elish Norn, I feel like the black aligned Phyrexians are still very close to true Phyrexia, because true Phyrexia was a black aligned plane anyway.
Yeah, they're Yawgmoths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even then, the infighting, the ambition, this all plays towards like this idea of all will be one. That is the true message of new Phyrexia, and it makes sense from a Phyrexian point of view, but that wasn't really the true. As much as Yawgmoth created the glistening oil and it does take over and homogenize everything, this idea of making everything under one banner wasn't necessarily like his true message. It was more conquering and wanting to win. He had his own personal ambition, whereas Elish Norn always has this. Always feels like everything's fine.
Well, yeah, it's that unifying thing. It's that kind of classic spin on the
like
white
you don't
bad
understand the perfection, And I think there was even a point early in the development of Elish Norn's character of where it was said that even she didn't believe in her own orthodoxy. But I think now that's kind of been cannoned out, because I feel like it kind of undermines.
Yeah, it doesn't
work.
So
It doesn't work exactly.
Just to cap off the Tyvar Kaito sort of color theory thing, it's that I think you said it there. The black aligned Thanes are ambitious, and we forget. We sometimes think, obviously, classic. Our first 5 episodes we're talking about this really, but a lot of people assume that if they're black, they have to be selfish and evil. Whereas also that's true of black, but black can also be ambitious and also gambling. I know the card gamble is technically a red card, and the idea mechanically of kind of not knowing what the outcome's going to be is very red.
So Tavern Swindler is a black
Tavern
card.
Swindler is black card. Black is also the other gambling
Take
colour.
the risk.
It's taking a risk.
Yeah.
And if there's anything about swashbucklers and adventurers and the characters of Kaito and Tyvar that we've seen in their own arcs, it's that they both dive in sword first, ask questions later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's absolutely a black move. Like, yeah, cool. Like, they're going to go, yeah, I'm going to put myself at risk and, like, my life total, if you like, if it means the rewards are going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely, they're great.
And I think it's also... I think it's interesting. I feel like as a strike force... I mean, apparently there were 2 strike forces. Again, this is one thing that would be nice to know in the plans, would be like, we plan to go with these 5 on this team and this 5 on this team. But they clearly had, like, a balance of colour as well, like... You need the ones that are more grand. I mean, Kaya as well is like a massive figurehead within this story arc. Like she's the backup to Jace. If everything goes to shit with Jace, she's the one who's going to detonate the Silex. She's the only other one who knows how to.
And she's white black.
And it's funny that the two of them, Kaito and Kaya, right at the end, were trying to fight against Jace doing this, blowy uppy the everything. And again, whether
is that the selfishness?
Well, that's the thing. Is the question is for I think for Kaya, because she's specifically white black, she's the only person I feel like you can go. She has the most measured responses, because she won't think purely from a whole, this is the best thing to do, and ignore like actual reality. But then she's also willing to question her own, her own specific ideas for the greater good. I feel like she's the perfect character to kind of question that morality. As she did a really good job of balancing out the Orzhov, for example, working with Taser, like releasing all of the ghosts and all of the fucking contract and pledges and stuff from that arc. Like, she's very good at trying to create this fairness. I think all she wants to do is right the wrongs of the multiverse. And the fact that they were trying to fight against this logic, and whether or not that logic was compromised by this point, I don't think we'll ever really know. Or maybe we will. Who knows? We haven't yet. Big Bugbear have got a Phyrexian perspective. We haven't got a Phyrexian point of view yet in this story.
Not
really.
In the main stories.
Not in the main stories. We haven't seen what Elish is thinking. We haven't seen the moment that Urabras goes, this is the time to fight back. We haven't seen... We've kind of just seen it, like, exteriorly, because it's all been a focus on the Planeswalkers. And it's curious to me that in a setting where we've said for years that we don't like it when sets are only based around Planeswalkers and their interactions, they've balanced it enough with the denizens of Mirrodin, with the Mirrans themselves, and then also not made these Planeswalkers feel like just stand-in, stompy, I'm going to do what I want kind of people.
Yeah, they've been really good.
And it's a shame that Kaito and Kaya could be questioned for, like, this was your chance to destroy Phyrexia.
Yeah.
But then there was also a question mark, because you could always say there is no cost too great for destroying Phyrexia. but somehow they created a circumstance of where there was a cost to Great.
Yeah.
And I wish there was a little bit more visual aid for how the Realmbreaker is invading the other planes. I feel that's the only thing you don't really see.
Well, it's they did this on Kaldheim too. They give very beautiful descriptions that mean very little.
Exactly, because I'm like, that doesn't make sense in my head. How are they in the middle of 9
it's just
spheres
sort
that
of
you can
just
see into the
rainbows
multiverse?
and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of got to give like artistic license to the writer a lot of being like, okay, right, tell me what I'm seeing. Cool, I guess I believe it. So, I mean, yeah, it's just interesting to see that a lot of the leads in this arc, and a lot of the voices for good, so to speak, quote unquote, are the black aligned characters.
We'll move on to the side stories, I think, and then we can do a bit of a wrap up. There's one line which I really liked. I mean, Sean Maguire's writing is really good, but one of my picks for best line of the series, and it's where they were showing deference to Nahiri. They were equally having the new crop of planeswalkers kind of wondering what the fuck Jace is about and why everyone's giving him such like deference. It's Jace basically taking the Mirrans into the arena to save Vraska, which they all unanimously agree is a dumb
idea,
but they're all gonna fucking do it anyway
because we don't split up. You know?
And then Kaito comes in with, "This is a terrible idea," muttered Kaito. "I have plenty of terrible ideas, but they don't usually get everybody around me dead. But Jace has special bad ideas, I guess."
Yeah, right.
It's like, and basically that was, I don't know if this is what Maguire was intending or whatever else, but that is a massive community foghorn of going, Jace is a moron sometimes, and yet he never gets called out on it, really.
No.
And, like, look, we all love Jace. I know we bag on him and stuff, but actually there's a reason why he's one of the dual faces of the game. He's a very interesting, very nuanced character, but he's a fucking moron sometimes, and people don't really call him out on it.
Yeah, I feel like his fallibility is the thing that makes him likable, so no one wants to call him out, because they don't want him to lose that fallibility. When he was like a goody two-shoes, everything's great kind of person, no one liked him. As soon as he got to Ixalan and started showing like these very human faults and actual, like, you know, human progression, and we found out a lot of it comes down to the fact his, you know, brain was all fudged up by himself, you know, like it makes him more amenable, you know, it makes him more likable, and it's nice to see that kind of come full circle with other characters going like, this guy's a fucking tool, and it's like, yeah, but we love him.
All right, cool. We'll do some wrap up between the two sets of stories, but let's move on to the side stories now. So we have, let's just kick off. We'll do one by one. So let's kick off with Nathan's getting another drink.
Yeah, drink. Yeah, we have to kick off with another drink. You're not having another one?
Oh yeah, I'll go and grab my beer.
There we go.
There, then.
This is a nice interval. This is good.
You're gonna have to scooch through.
That's fine. I'm scooching. Oh.
I might ask you to throw another log on the fire as well.
Yeah, that's fine by me. I like firing logs.
Okay.
Tell me.
Right, there is a bag of logs there.
Yep.
Just grab one.
Yep.
What you're going to do is you're going to use the cloth that's underneath the last step.
Yep.
You're going to use that to open up the thing.
Yep.
And you're just going to bung that straight on top.
Okay.
And you're going to close that.
Yep.
There you go.
Beautiful.
And then we're just going to leave it.
Easy. Fire makes fire.
Fire makes fire. We're back in my boat, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, the plan was to try and get down to the LGS and try and do it in person there, you know, and have games and stuff wrapped around it. But I mean, this is actually quite nice. It's cozy.
I'm keeping this all in.
Yeah.
I talk about other governments. This is all staying
Lovely,
in.
amazing.
All right. So we have, for the side stories, 5 side stories. All of them are very, very different. They have, you know, as people have read side stories before, sometimes they might like bunch a couple together or whatever else. These are all completely separated from each other. And we're going to do one by one. First one is Cinders by Cassandra Core. Cassandra Core did the Unbowed trilogy, which introduced us to Vivian Reed. So,
right, yeah.
So they're returning to Magic. These are the only 4 stories they've ever done. As a very brief overview for Cinders, we follow a Mirror Resistance cell as one of their leaders tracks their best friend who has run away from their Resistance cell to basically find their mother who has been Phyrexianized, and it's showing the sort of horrors of everyday Mirrans fighting the Phyrexians and the kind of in the trenches soldiers.
Yeah, it's more low to the ground.
Very low to the ground.
Yeah. It's fine.
It's okay.
So as we said before we started recording, I feel there's a certain, as much as Wizards for some reason, and they seem to do this thing of like, you're only going to be able to relate to humans. As soon as a story is kind of based around humans, my brain immediately goes, well, I see enough humans day to day. Time to switch off my brain and ignore everything else, because I don't want to go into my fantasy setting and see humans. Like, the whole point, and that we didn't mention this, like, there's a statement from Koth about how there are less and less elves there's less and less elves. Like, there are barely any elves left on Mirrodin. He hasn't seen an uncompleted Vidalcan in years. It's like, great, so we're stuck with the spiky rock humans. It's like, I guess, again, it's relatable. The way that they interact with, like, the way they consider their family and that kind of thing is a lot more relatable. But it just makes the story seem a little bit more yada yada. Yeah, sure, okay. Because there's enough, like, war and stuff in the real world that you got to really push the fantasy element for me not to be like, cool, yeah, war's bad, I get that. You know? And again, like, it's fine. And there were moments of her realizing that, you know, she kills this random Phyrexian that seems to be hurting her friend, and then she finds out from her friend the reason why she wasn't fighting back was like, that was my mother, and you kind of have that like moment of like, oh,
yeah,
okay, that hits home.
Yeah, so you have Niali, who's the leader of the Mirren Cell, and her best friend Rihanna, and one's a Volshock, one's a Eyeshock. Oriok.
Yes.
Volshock and Oriok, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of showing all the Mirrens collectively coming together, and you have like other races of Mirrodin that's still around. They're kind of clubbing together. We do have an appearance of Slowbad, who's the kind of villain of the piece, and we see Slowbad, who's, I mean, it's Khan Silver Golem's body, right?
That's the thing. The Bosch.
Bosch.
The thing,
Sorry,
so
Bosch.
the way we're looking at it is, yeah, we're combining
Golem.
Bosch's body with Slowbad's torso, and you can even see it's even mentioned specifically. You can see where the flesh ends and the metal connects, and it's very much a fusion of the two of them. Yeah,
yeah, and there's nice description of the pauldron of one of his arms has other Mirrodin goblins like kind of cast into
the heads of mirror, and if you see it in his artwork and you zoom in, you're like, oh, you hadn't noticed that, and it does look really, really cool.
My problem with this story, and it's not the writing, it very rarely is the writing. When it is, I call it out specifically line for line, and there's nothing in the writing itself that I can have a go at. So I think, you know, no shade against Cassandra Core, I think they got dealt a bit of a sort of dud hand with the kinds of stories they want to tell, because this story has a lot about the kind of horrors of Phyrexia, the kind of the idea that maybe one of the Mirrens is going to willingly become an aspirant of Phyrexia is an interesting idea.
That's a very cool idea.
And just all of this kind of stuff. There's lots of nice little ideas, but essentially what we're looking at is a redux version of the main story where a group of people go to attack some Phyrexians, and you're just like,
and it doesn't go very well.
And it doesn't go well.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's Cinders.
It is cool to see talk of the Mordroth Phoenixes, to be fair.
Oh, that's true.
There is a little bit of that, and they're talking about how like they're hatching, and it's nice to see the two. Like, again, low to the ground is fine when you're in downtime.
We love low to the ground.
Low to the ground is really cool in between the arcs, but when you've got this big sweeping planeswalker invasion of New Phyrexia, low to the ground stories are like, cool, I don't care, I want to be flying. So don't give me low to the ground stuff when there's all this cool stuff up in the air.
Yeah. I sort of feel as well that there wasn't enough. Like, I don't think the story. I mean, how do I phrase this? I think a lot of people have been really looking forward to the return of the Mirrens, and because we kind of presumed that a lot of them had died, like that they were kind of extinct. And then there was that Wayne Reynolds artwork for Blightsteel Colossus that showed that Mirrens were still around, because he was fighting a bunch of Volshocks in the artwork. So that kind of kickstarted a lot of like, ooh. But I think the tantalizing nature of that was more that New Phyrexia hasn't been completely lost. I don't know how many people really cared when there's all this other stuff going on about the actual Mirrens themselves, which is very...
It's similar to kind of like Innistrad is always going to have, even once everything's blown over, you're going to still have all of the horrors and everything. I feel like with Mirrodin, it's gone. Like it should, as much as I don't want to say it should, and I don't really want to. I don't necessarily want to see a set in the future of where we go back to Mirrodin, where it's kind of recovering from the Phyrexianization. We've already had that with Zendikar. We already have that with Innistrad. Every time we go back there, I feel like as much as the Mirrens and their resistance is a cool idea, I feel like it's something that in reality, from my point of view, you can't narratively justify them surviving if Phyrexia succeeds to then have its full invasion. I feel like at that point, you know, Mirrodin is lost. It is now New Phyrexia.
Yeah. Moving on then. We have, in the next story, we have A Hollow Body by Ayusha Ufara. Ayusha Ufara. I think I made this exact mistake last time we spoke about them. And last time we spoke about Ayusha was with A Cry of Magic.
Oh, yeah.
Another story spotlight.
Fan
Again,
favourite.
This is a who's who. Fan favourite for us, as well. Yeah, which was Ruther's individual story from the Strixhaven stories. And a set of stories the side stories where infinitely more interesting than the main narrative. So yeah, and they also did The Edge of the World, which was one of the Crimson Vow side stories with the detective. A little less interesting, but still good.
The Jacob, right? The Jacob
yeah,
story.
That's it. Yeah. And in this one, now we have a difference of opinion. I'm going to give the little synopsis, but prior to talking about this, we have a difference of opinion about this episode, I think. Basically, we are seeing this is through the eyes of a Phyrexian.
Holy shit! It happened.
It happened immediately, as you said. Like, oh, it never happens. It happened. What is their name? Ixel. And it's Atraxa. So if Elesh Norn created Atraxa, who is the 4-color Phyrexian angel, 4-color because Urabrask didn't partake in building Atraxa. Atraxa has now made something in their own image. This is another Phyrexian angel, but like a 3rd generation of Phyrexians now underneath Elesh Norn's kind of rule, called Ixel. And it is a mission where Atraxa and Elesh Norn task Ixel with finding and killing Geth, who is now
Thane of Contracts.
The way that the Black Aligned Phyrexians organise themselves is that whilst Sheldred was a Creator, that was like because they were the current sort of more dominant Black Phyrexian leader. The Black Sphere has a bunch of Thanes. I think, what was it, 7 in total?
7 still Thanes.
7 still Thanes that were all trying to vie for dominance, very much because they are all ambitious motherfuckers. So yeah, there was never like, it's not like how Vorinclex and Jinkataxis and Urabrask dominated their spheres. The Thanes were constantly fighting each other. And we see through this story, Ixel sort of having a crisis of identity.
I want to say faith as well. Like again, the orthodoxy is the orthodoxy. It's not a religion, it's a way of thinking, but it turns out that way of thinking is only a way of thinking, not the way of thinking.
Yeah. So what we see is Ixel sort of having what they would, I guess, consider being impure thoughts, which I suppose to us is kind of, we would understand them as they're having like a non-Phyrexian, I'm going to say human, but by human I mean like just sentient beings that aren't Phyrexians. It's just, we would say it's a human emotion, in a very Star Trek-y kind of way. And they are both completely devoted to the will of Phyrexia, but they don't quite understand the emotions they're having, and these emotions get pulled at and teased at by a lot of the Phyrexians on the Black Sphere level, including Geth. At the end of the story, we see Ixel trying to have their own creation, where they've made a new Phyrexian out of the decapitated head of Geth and a new Phyrexian body, something which Elesh Norn and Atraxa see as an abomination. It's, if my synopsis of this sounds like weird and bizarre, this story is fucking strange.
It is what? Wait, so it's in the second person, which you very rarely get stories in the second person anyway. It creates this really this is exactly why I want more Phyrexian point of view, because it's very, again, like, it's interesting because you're seeing a new way of thinking, a new way of expressing. You get to understand the Phyrexians when otherwise all you're supposed to go is, oh god, crazy, scary, no.
Yeah.
And instead you get to understand a little bit of the hypocrisy of Phyrexia. Because this is the thing that I think that will ultimately be its downfall, is the hypocrisy of itself. Of why is Elesh allowed to create Atraxa and then Atraxa are able to create Ixhel when Ixhel's not able to create... I can't remember what the name of it is. Now, we know what the name of it is because of the... It's not on the artwork. I've already scrolled down to it. It's. I don't think it gives it. Maybe
Vishgraz.
Oh, that's it, Vishgraz. And like we've got that card within the commander set as well. And we haven't mentioned, but these are the two stories that follow the two commander sets in the same way that the Lopez story followed the Akiri story, and we got one for AC or whatever it was, the Dire Straits or whatever. We got the two different...
In Zendikar Rising, we got like Ubosh and all that.
Yeah, so then we get the two stories for the two commander decks here as well, and I guess Boris is more boring kind of combination, which is why the story was more boring. But this is the Abzan side, right? And I think it's just interesting to see that Atraxa's allowed to create Ixhel and give them, purpose. But Ixhel's creation is known as an abomination. I think all she says specifically is, get rid of it. And clearly Ixhel doesn't. And clearly Ixhel has a little bit of a push against it. And it also shows that Atraxa has more, like, again, words, human emotions and a human response to it, of why would they have an issue. I think the only issue they have is they don't like this idea of their creation. Similar, I guess, to what Alien and Prometheus, of where the
I had
offense,
no idea you were going to pull that out.
the offense of your creation creating a creation. You know, the idea of God created humans created AI, and then David creates his own, creates the aliens. It's like, why am I not allowed to do what you've done to me? Because they misunderstand the process, and this is where, and this is what makes Phyrexia interesting, and this is why I really hope we get into the nitty gritty of it and kind of see itself. Because this is what I see happening: is I see Phyrexia pulling itself apart. Now the Silex blast didn't work. Now you can't do the detonate the bomb, cut the head off, you know, and everything else dies. I think the only way this can go is for it to slowly pull itself apart based on its own structure, because it shows that maybe Phyrexia shouldn't be a 5-colour system. There's a reason why Yawgmoth's Phyrexia was much better, is it? Because it's attracts to the unifier, and you're missing one of the colours of magic. So it's almost a betrayal of that understanding of, like, everything falls into line. You know, and you can see this from the fact that the Black Praetors revolt, and the fact that Urabrask is revolting, and even within this story we see a little bit of discordance between them.
Yeah, so Ixal, by the end of the story, kind of has a self-described, what was it? Dissidence? I've entered that sentence without knowing. Defiance. Your machine orthodoxy means as much as my contracts. This is Vishgraz talking to Ixal. You aren't him, you growl. Then what am I? You stare at the fractured ground. You're my first defiance. Now go. So this is Ixal discovering that, whether they're against Phyrexia or not, they understand that they're not part of the orthodoxy, really. And it's interesting what you said earlier about the spheres. The further out from the mycosynth you go, the more kind of rebellious the layers seem to get. We see it here as well, with Elish Norn is the orthodoxy. Atraxa is their devoted weapon. The weapon of the weapon is now starting to have, non-Phyrexian feelings and whatever else that they don't quite understand. Are they then going to start perpetrating these anti-Phyrexians? And it's, I thought it was really strange. And again, just the whole existence of Ixal as a character in Magic is really odd, where Atraxa is so recognizable as being the Phyrexian angel that when I saw the Commander product and there was this new face card, I was like, oh, they've got a new Atraxa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not Atraxa.
No, but she's still making idols within her own image.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to see that the rebellious character is missing blue and red, which may be the two colours of... I guess black you could argue as well as being a rebellious colour, but the fact that red being the colour of, of self-preservation, of self-identity, and maybe blue being the colour of, conscious intelligence, right, and theory crafting and the idea of progress, the fact that two of those are the ones that are missing within a character that is showing personal identity and showing progress beyond the orthodoxy. The very end is deep in the center of deep in the center of you is an ache that wishes to follow him, but you don't.
Yeah.
Not yet.
And
that's the line at the end. And this is, I think, one of those things of what we really loved about the writing style as well. It's you've got to finish on a little clip, you've got to finish on that kind of that feeling of and it sets even if we never get another perspective of this, we already know kind of what the tangent of that shows and what it might mean for the future. And that's what I kind of like from this story. And it's true, I think, at the beginning I said the side stories aren't that necessarily important. I guess we're also going to see this in the next one that we talk about as well. Maybe not the next one, but the one after that. That we do get to see a little bit of the perspective of the Phyrexians, and it kind of, I guess, it might have undermined how aggressive and how dangerous they are if we started to see these fallacies now.
Yeah. I think it's a slow burn, and we have to, as much as there have been times in Magic story where it's actually kind of nice to have a break from the breakneck speed of the main narrative, because it feels rushed and whatever else, and we've said this for different story arcs in the past. The side stories, the low to the ground ones, where we need to be. I think these ones being much more understated, and again, fucking weird. But weird in a kind of they're really trying something with this style of narrative, and then having the real action in the main stories, I think works real well. I do like this story as reading it, I liked it. There were some character voices where I wasn't sure I was fully on board with. Geth and Balaxis, just their voice.
Balaxis was a bit odd.
It was a bit odd, but in general, really, really loved it.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have...
Also, can someone tell Geth quickly that the mohawk went out of fashion in the 80s?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the artwork either, but we have Hard as Anger, Bright as Joy by Langley Hyde. Hard as Anger, Bright as Joy. And Langley Hyde, we know from pretty recent Magic history, as doing the main story arc for Dominaria United. Who, baby, talk about being handed damp squibs and duds with their stories. They got handed way too much to do. But yes, did attempt to bring all that together. And I think, I can't remember what we said at the time. I can't remember if I was unkind to them by saying that it was partly their writing that scuppered Dominaria. That doesn't sound like me. I feel like they were given way too much.
I do. I think there was also moments of brilliance and then moments of like there was nothing else they could do. The fact they had to jump about the entire plane and create an invasion and a resistance within 5 stories, and then also do an Among Us episode in the middle of all of that.
Oh, that was my favourite one.
That's
still
really
maintain.
good. Like, that's the thing. The Lock Tower was phenomenal. The build-up to the invasion was great, but the build-up should have been another 4 fucking episodes. It should have just been build-up. It should have been episode 1. We know the invasion is happening because Khan's seen it, but oh, by the way, now it's been several months.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do the build-up.
Anyway, we're not
talking about that one anyway.
Hard as Anger, Bright as Joy follows, I guess, the other strike team, or at least the remnants of the Planeswalkers that form another strike team, in Nissa and Luca, going through the Hunter's Maze. So, in the main story, one of the first things they do once they get to the facade layer is they basically burrow straight down into the furnace, and they go to the furnace, then straight into the dross pits, and they even make a point of saying this circumnavigates the Hunter's Maze and the surgical pit.
Bay.
And in true main story, side story fashion, or at least this is what they should do, because they don't always, and it's always a shame when they don't. We get the other 2 layers in the side story. So here's the Hunter's Maze, and we have Luca and Nissa. Very simple story, real simple story. They are helicopter going overhead. They'll never find us in this boat. We have Luca and Nissa basically just trying to get out of that layer. They know that they're not meant to be there. They're trying desperately to get to the others. It's all from Luca's perspective, and we get like a really weird sort of like buddy cop thing between Luca, Nissa,
a little bit of the Wanderer.
A little bit of the Wanderer. The Wanderer does pop in and pop out again. It's
shocking.
Nice. Yeah. They did a thing where obviously we saw the Wanderer on like a random card in a couple of sets. I really wish they can. Like,
they just need to keep doing that. Yeah, we didn't get enough of that over the last like decade of Magic of being like, who the hell is this weirdo with the hat?
Yeah,
we should have just had it more often.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Wanderer maybe more at the end of the story, because they've achieved something with the Wanderer, and I want to talk about it a little bit. I don't want this episode to run too long. So the whole crux of this, the whole point of this story episode, is showing, like what we said about the main stories, where Phyrexia is such on a razor's edge between being this beautiful thing and this horrible thing, showing, I think, not the end of Luca's story arc, but definitely. So again, we're going to disagree, because you weren't too convinced that the XL story was necessarily relevant, and then before we started recording, you were like, why do we need to see Luca being an arsehole? We know he's an arsehole. I don't want to put words in your mouth, you can defend yourself. But my whole thing is actually, this story is perfect at showing Luca as being absolutely the man that he is. He's a sense of duty. He knows he doesn't like Nissa, but he gets on with her because he knows it's part of the plan.
His regrettable duty.
Yeah. And all the way through, because he makes the fucking dumb decision, because he's got hubris, and because he's bullheaded, and because he's Luca, and he does...
And he's alone as well.
And he's alone.
This. There's no counsel going to him for this.
He uses the Eluder to join with a Phyrexian creature, this centaur they keep describing it as.
Yeah, we see the centaur in one of the cards in the set, and this centaur looks freaky.
And at one point in their journey, so it's him riding the centaur, Nissa's on the back of him because they meet up, they need to get out of the lair, so they're climbing up this tree. There's a point where they're about to fall off, and he, using the Eluder, tells the centaur to bind him to him. Secure him.
Secure me.
And in a true Phyrexian way, he goes, yeah, sure thing, boss. And he spikes him with a bunch of tendrils.
Right through the body.
And now they're one. And fucking of course.
Shocking.
And Nissa all the whole time is like, this dude is like connected to a Phyrexian. This isn't going to go well. But he keeps being like, no, I'm fine.
Everything's okay.
And her not really having time to doubt him, just goes, yeah, whatever. And it happens exactly how you expect it to happen. Why am I always the Luca apologist?
Do you know what's funny, right, is that the only thing that annoyed me is, why did it need to be, and I said this at the beginning, it's like, why they had to do this, like, 5 main stories, 5 side stories, like, I don't understand why they have to stick to this structure, because I feel like this structure is the thing that's damning. This is the thing that hurt Dominaria United, and this is the thing that ultimately hurt a little bit. I don't see why this story couldn't have been one of the 6. Like, I guess it's a side story, it's not necessarily integrating with the others. The only thing we really see of it, because we didn't read synopsis, is that they're going through the tangle, and eventually, because of his slow Phyrexian influence, and I agree, the way they showed his way of thinking slowly drift towards the Phyrexian way of thinking is like, it's super sneaky. Phyrexia ain't like, you believe our thing now, or we torture you. They go, no, we'll just slowly convert your way of thinking to be the way of thinking of Phyrexian. Like, there's different ways of thinking Phyrexian, and it makes sense. And the way it did it, and the way it showed the slow turn, it didn't at any point feel like it was Luca doing the thing that he shouldn't be doing. It's just, I guess, it's just annoying to me that Luca constantly finds himself in a position of where he can't redeem himself. So maybe we might get a redemption arc in the future. I just feel like it's kind of harsh that he keeps being dealt these really horrible hands of where there's no winning way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, he is the tragic villain. And I know, look, we've said it 100 times. We have to mention it every time we talk about Luca. And we did, when we spoke about Ikoria, I spent way too much time dancing on the knife's edge for being an apologist for toxic masculinity versus, like, an interesting insight into how damaged, like, some male psyches are. Whatever. Like, we understand Luca is the sort of projection of not only toxic masculinity, but kind of a sense of duty over a sense of morality and all that kind of stuff. But there is a line, and it's in, like, one of the first instances of the story, where he says Luca had been expecting when the telepath Jace had tracked him down. Luca had been expecting an attack because of what he had done on Ikoria and Strixhaven. So immediately he understands
he's an apologist,
that he, like, not that he's done wrong, but he gets that he's not, like, not everyone agrees with him.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, he's not just thinking, hey, my way's right and wrong, whatever.
He's not delusional about what he's
delusional about his own, like, where his place, right? Luca had been reluctant initially, but when Jace had told him Phyrexia threatened Ikoria, he couldn't stand by. He cared too much about his home for that. Now, toxic, yes. Megalomaniacal,
Yep, good.
yes. Like, through the sundered bond. No one at the end is rooting for Luca, but we... Or at least I, because maybe I'm a fucking toxic masculinist, if that's a word, saw how he got there and goes, he's doing this because he thinks he's doing right by the plane.
Yeah. I don't even blame him for Strixhaven, because, like, the way they present it is like he was a random planeswalker. We don't know what happened between him walking there and before, and it kind of shows he's like, for a new planeswalker, we don't know about Ravnica, you don't know about Dominaria, you don't know about these, like, safe havens that have this diversity and acceptance, and they know about planeswalkers. You go to a random, I mean, even Strixhaven knows about planeswalkers, but he planeswalk to this random part of it, and then immediately gets ostracized, and immediately gets to a plane and goes, well, this place is fucking shit too. You know, and, like, of course, like, how do you ever judge who is the good guy and who is the bad guy when you planeswalk to a plane? We know as the reader, because we know what the antagonist and we know what the protagonist and we know which side you should be on is. But as a planeswalker, when you first reach somewhere, you don't know who to believe to be the bad guy or the good guy. Yeah. And again, like, it got to a certain point where you realise what the Auric were doing weren't great, and it's not like Extus was the most, like, convincing of people, you know, like, getting crushed by his own, he got hoisted by his own petard, shall we say, you know. But we could understand the motivation, understand why he was put in that position. So yeah, at no point do I feel like Luca is ever a bastard. I just feel like he's just got the unfortunate happenstance of he always gets written into corners of where he won't be able to win from.
Yeah, there's lots of things in this story when he's bonded to the Phyrexian Centaur of the promises of Phyrexia, which other characters have also had. But when the other characters have it, they always shake them off as being like, oh, this isn't actually what I think, or whatever else. But Luca, coming from a society... Again, listen to our Ikoria episode on humans. It's the worst sound quality we've ever done because it was when we were starting to figure out how to do remote recording. But I think I did some good stuff in that episode because I really believed in it. There's a line here, it says, you deserve power, you are strong, here strength is rewarded, the weak are culled. If he's coming from a human society in Dranith on Ikoria, where literally the whole plane is about strength winning out.
Survival.
I know the Bonders are like the squishy, lovely, like, no, we can live in harmony stuff, but he was risen to believe that you have to be strong to fight against the monsters. If something is promising him, like, ultimate power... he is not wrong for seeking it out.
No, I agree.
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
The world he has lived in has taught him that this is what you prioritise. And that's the other thing that you don't realise. Like, we're not just bringing a load of different people with their own wants and needs and whatever. We're bringing loads of people's cultures, the way they grew up, what they consider to be a foundational... expectation of the world, or an what's acceptable to them in the world, or what their principles are. All of these things are based on the culture you come from. You know, whether or not you prioritize a family, family being the priority, or work being the thing, like you laboring, like do you stick to your duty, or do you have or self-preservation, like all of these different things, and this is like just within like the world that we know. You're talking about extreme circumstances of planes of where you've got to face zombies every day. It's a really hard thing to balance, and I think it's very easy to call Luca out for being a twat, because fair enough, he made a dumb mistake, but I don't know which of the planeswalkers, if you look through all of like the different arcs, all of them made mistakes. None of them are infallible. It's just
Nahiri's in the story.
Like
just a bait that Nahiri
and
fans
even within this story, like it's very easy to make mistakes in a place like Phyrexia, and they all just kind of got lucky because the narrative required it. He was a very easy fall guy, and I think it's a shame that he just happened to be the fall guy again. But I do understand why they did it, because it is at least consistent from a character point of view. This is why I think
it was good, because this is like, of course he was going to get Phyrexianized. Of course he did, yeah. And like that's sort of on him as much as it is Phyrexians being Phyrexian. Like you look at someone like Vraska, fucking tragic, because there's no way she deserved that. Jace as well. For Luca, it was like, of course he was going to, like, there's no way. And I think talking back to my earlier point about Tyvar being the most Kaldheim, like, and being like a real representation of his plane. I think the other three that have always sprung to mind when I've had those thoughts are Nahiri and Nissa for Zendikar. They are real fucking Zendikari, and they always show their colours. And Luca. Yeah. Luca is a courier through and through.
Yeah, and it's funny that we did bounce this into Nissa, and I feel like the point of this story is that Nissa very much needed to be completed. Again, we haven't seen this, but I reckon we'll get this when we get to March in the Machines.
Well, it is, we'll
it's
probably on a card art, isn't it?
We'll probably see, all will be one. We'll see a retrospective point of view, I think, of Elish of how much she needed Nissa, because they arrive within. So the whole point, right, of this is that Nissa thinks that Luca's taken them out and trying to lead them to safety, and because of his Phyrexianized influence, he's then said leading them to the den of Vorinclex, where Vorinclex and Glyssa are sparring, having a little tussle, to keep their...
Glyssa's in the story as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that really interesting, because you notice it, because Luca says, oh, I've seen Glyssa before, and at that point you can tell the Phyrexian within him is the one who recognises her, not him himself.
Is that what it is?
Because a lot of people call down and be like, well, how does he know what Glyssa looks like? And how does he recognise Glyssa? It's like, because he's already turning, It's the memories within him aren't his own. They're the Phyrexian memories of the centaur that he's now bonded with, that's the person who recognised Glyssa.
Good spot, yeah.
And it's also interesting as well to see that Nissa was kind of bodying Vorinclex alone. We kind of forget that Nissa's, like, really fucking strong. Like, she's not like, oh, I'm a normal elf. Like, she's like elf from Zendikar, and they're like boss man, They're like really, really strong. Like, she's not just really cool with ley lines and elementals and stuff. She's also got a sword that's really strong. She's really strong. And I think it shows, like, when the two of them were fighting, because it was Glyssa versus Luca, and then it was Vorinclex versus Nissa. And obviously Glyssa was able to turn around to Luca and be like, but why are we fighting? We're on the same side. And Luca went, oh shit, yeah, you're right. I didn't even realise I was Phyrexian yet. I guess I am now. And then they turn around to Nissa, and Nissa looks around at all three of them and goes, tits. Because the whole point is, like, also, it was nice to see Nissa having faith in someone again. Like, again, it's the circumstance. You can't really avoid it. You're in this horrible, tangled maze. As long as we're judging by what's said in the story compared to the side stories, she's already been trapped and planeswalked to somewhere else. So I think she was deliberately pushed into the tangle or to the into the maze, or Hunter's Maze, sorry, specifically for the process of being completed for Elishnorn to use. Again, we haven't got all of those pieces in place yet, but I think that's likely that she dropped down with Jace, then got sucked down to the tangle, happened to meet up with Luca, and Luca then trapped her down into the. It all kind of was contrived-ish, but it's good to see, like, this moment of, cool, had we not known this story, yes, Nissa gets completed off camera, and technically she gets completed off camera anyway, because we see her still fine at the end of the story, but there's this kind of, like, all three of them are, like, looming towards her, and it's like, well, obviously Nissa ain't gonna fucking survive this. And the next time we see her is when Elishnorn, parades all of her new anti-gate watch for all of the others to see. So, yeah, I do understand why it wasn't part of the 5 stories. I feel like it probably could have been, and not been weird. And again, I think, seeing Luca and his point of view, I'd like to see more of it, though maybe at this point now we've kind of lost him, And it's also we haven't really got any other Boris Walkers beyond the stupid space dog from Unfinity.
That's true.
We haven't got any Boris Walkers.
All three,
anymore.
like Ajani, Nahiri, and Luca.
Yeah, all gone. All gone. Why do you think Boris is such a boring colour? Maybe the Wanderer will get really angry about something at some point. Who fucking knows? Anyway,
yeah, they can
it's
change
fine.
Colours.
It's fine.
Next up, we have a Man of Parts. written by Reinhard Suarez. Reinhard Suarez, or Reinhard Suarez, I keep saying Reinhardt, it's Reinhardt, has been in Magic for a while now. Reinhard Suarez did Chains That Bind and The Mentor from Strixhaven side stories, Survivors from the Crimson Vow side stories, and then took the side stories in quotation, but I think we kind of decided it was just two halves of the same coin.
Exactly.
Took the Brothers War side stories, all 5 of them in fact, and had a fucking whale of a time doing some really dense battle scenes, which, you know, a thankless task, but I think I smashed it.
Wasn't this the same author that did the... It is, right? These are the... Yeah, it's the Ashiok, the letter of love from Ashiok to Elspeth.
Yes, yeah.
Interspersed within the chapter for the Dark, yeah. Reinhardt's great.
Yeah, and this, and I'll say as well for Miguel Lopez, who did do the 5th side story of these ones. So one of the really refreshing things for both the main story and the first 3 side stories, refreshing because I'm a bad reader, was the fact that we'd kind of gone back to the sort of 2,500 word count mark from the 4,000 a story, which Miguel Lopez and Reinhard Suarez kind of adhered to. And then these last 2, I was like, I'm not making a dent in this story.
Yeah,
it's these guys.
This story is long. I'm going to preface this by saying... general audience feedback seems to be like, of all of the stories, this was the hardest to get through because Reinhardt just has a certain way of writing that is very dense, very loquacious.
Yeah.
Like my vernacular's pretty damn good, you know, as an ex-writer myself. Like I know a lot of words, and even with this, I was like getting through. I was like, you can just use 4-letter words, Reinhardt, every now and again. You don't have to make it so difficult to penetrate.
I mean, yeah, but what I will say for both, and this is a catch-all for both of them, I think we said at the time as well, and this is why I think, is this a golden age of Magic writing? The level of writing, the level of loquaciousness, these are not Magic stories. Like, we don't deserve this.
This is what we need the novels made out of. Give me War of the Spark, written by Reinhard Suarez.
Yeah, or Miguel Lopez. Like, yeah.
Give us them. Like, as much as, again, it's not the fault necessarily of the writer, because Magic Wizards will say, you need to hit all of these notes and everything. Fine. But at least they'll hit the notes with enough little fluffiness in between that will make you kind of get over it a little bit.
So, Man of Parts follows Tezzeret. We're back to Tezzeret. Tezzy boy. Tezzy T.
T-boy.
T-boy.
T-boy!
Anyway, Tezzeret, and he is finally getting his reward from Elish Norn, which is a Darksteel body. This was hinted at in the last set of stories for Brothers War. And this is him approaching Elish Norn to finally collect on his prize. He's so this is directly after the battle in the side stories, which actually, as you just said, Reinhard Suarez, the Dark, did right. So we have Tezzeret holding the limp body of Rona, fresh from that battlefield. And
another person refusing to die.
They're the real villains of, like, you know, the episodic villains.
Yeah. It even says it's like, oh, we can put them back together again. It's like, let Rona die. For the love of God.
And we see more bits of dissent from Tezzeret, because he starts trying to play off the Thanes against Elish Norn, saying it was their fault that the battle went sour, blah blah blah. Anyway, we have Elish Norn agreeing finally to give Tezzeret his Darksteel body. Tezzeret wakes up on the surgical bench in the surgical bay under Jinkataxius' watchful eye, in kind of a, you know, like villains comeuppance kind of way, where in the Neon Dynasty stories we saw Tamio being dissected under Jinkataxius and Tezzeret's watch. Tezzeret wakes up on the same table, which he notices, but he does indeed get his body. He does get his Darksteel
Which
body.
I'm surprised about. They actually followed through on something. It's nice to see the Phyrexians not just do that thing of where they go, we know we told you we were going to give this, but what are you going to do to stop us? Like, it's actually nice to see them follow through.
But the twist is that Jinkataxius, aware somehow that Tezzeret has been working against them as well as working for them, that he's a bit of a double agent, decides that he's going to use Tezzeret as another experiment to turn his Darksteel body into a Blightsteel body to see whether a new Phyrexianized reality chip, nice little nod back, I don't think it'll become too important, I could be proved wrong, but nice little nod back to the MacGuffin of the Kamigawa era, will be able to turn his Darksteel body into a Blightsteel body within a matter of days as opposed to months, as he said. Tezzeret using... there was a lot of this story seems to be not pandering to audience for their knowledge of Esper and Bant and Tezzeret's home.
In general,
Lara.
it's not pandering to anything. You need to accept a lot. Either be very, very, very on the ball, or just suspend your disbelief completely because it's going in depth on the random little abilities that like someone's clearly read, or Reinhardt's clearly read Test of Metal.
Yeah.
And read that, but because it's I think it's considered to be non-canon at this point because it doesn't necessarily overlap properly. But there are some deep cuts in this story. Like Reinhardt knows what they're talking about. They've researched Tezzeret completely, and they've pulled from every aspect of his history to make this story work.
Yeah, so we see Tezzeret breaking free of his surgical bonds by sort of mind melding with a suspended goblin engineer that then he uses as a sort of like a temporary body to get off the surgical bench. He planeswalks away to Esper, his home plane. We see his backstory. We get in sort of things about his childhood,
his father as well,
his abusive father, his mother who died, the fact he grew up as a street urchin. He takes in a street urchin who was part of a gang who tries to rob him as soon as he gets back onto Esper. And we also see, this is where we start really seeing the idea that the Phyrexian invasion is now just fucking happening.
Yeah.
As soon as he gets to Esper, the Phyrexians are like 2 seconds behind him. So this is obviously happening just as Realmbreak has been sort of set loose.
Yeah, I guess what would happen is that we're seeing the beginning is kind of like the beginning of this Tezzeret story is happening at the same time as the invasion of the. I guess it would be a day before. Because obviously the end of Elspeth's fight on Dominaria, and I think it was the day after that they started the plan to invade, he might have been on the surgical table for maybe a day. So at this point, Realmbreak has just broken through.
It's all just gone through.
And we know, we didn't mention this, but we know from the main story arc, it's not Realmbreakers going through and then they've got the invasion. No, they've got like full-on ships loaded with hundreds, if not thousands of Phyrexians already, almost like as these automatic kind of like Realmbreaker platforms are going into planes and kind of arriving with invasion parties ready to go.
Yeah, they're all good to go.
There's a reason why we didn't mention, they meet very little resistance going through all the different spheres to get down to the bottom, to the point of where it almost seems like a fucking fallacy, and the fact that we needed to kind of suspend our disbelief. It was like, no, there are no people here because they're all ready to invade because the invasion's already happened. You've already failed. You're not gonna stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We see Tezzeret taking in that young child from the gang that tries to rob him, giving him some Ethereum metal that he puts an inscription into, and tells him to send it off to Bant because obviously this is a Lara, so you're all now shards.
The convergence has now happened.
Yeah, so he's taking him off to Bant to give it to General Rafik.
He's
so
still
Rafika
fucking
the
around,
Many.
still double striking.
And then Tezzeret says that tell him this is a ally of Elspeth Terrell's. I mean, this story again being so dense, we'd have to have a whole episode itself to dissect it bit by bit. But just assuming you, dear listener, have read this story, has Tezzeret just become the most interesting character in Magic all of a sudden?
Tezzeret, I think, secretly has always been one of the most interesting people planeswalkers in Magic. He's always played both sides. He was supposed to have died years ago. Nicol has brought him back, not in the same way that Sarkhan Vol had his autonomy compromise and came back. Tezzeret's always been the fall guy.
Yeah.
He's always been after his own freedom, which is a big thing he states here, and he's finally kind of maybe got it. Tezzeret in general, I've never thought as being someone who's uninteresting. Every time he's in a story, there is nuance to him, there are layers to him, you never know where his allegiance lies. It kind of annoyed me when he was in New Capenna, because we didn't really need him to be in New Capenna, because he was just in Neon Dynasty, but it makes sense as being that...
Shows that he's playing the other side.
He's playing the other side. Yeah. A double agent, everyone loves Starscream, a double agent is like the best... most interesting character you can see, because they get to sit on both sides. They get to see both interactions they get to see the agendas, and they get to play the agendas off each other.
Yeah.
If I'm getting angry we didn't get enough of the point of view of Phyrexia, the only reason we got this point of view of Phyrexia is because we followed Tezzeret.
Yeah.
You know? So, no, I think Tezzeret has been one of the most interesting characters for a long time. The fact that he was the MacGuffin for the Lazotep army, to be able to, the Dread Horde, to be able to get to Dominaria is one thing, and now he's got rid of the planar bridge. Now he's alone with his Darksteel body, specifically, no artwork showing it, which I think is important, because we're going to see him in the future. I would love to see, in 5-10 years' time, what Tezzeret's arc was from beginning to end, because I reckon it's probably going to be one of the more interesting stories in Magic.
Yeah, I mean, this story is packed with, tidbits as well. Just the idea of, we see that Tezzeret had this thing where he couldn't exact revenge against his mother's killer, so this is obviously a bitter, twisted thing. The whole idea that he doesn't kill the child that he takes in from the gang, but he makes his knife better and kind of gives him a fighting chance and gives him the Ethereum note to give to Rafik. But then when the child tries to thank him, he's like, well, no, I'm not really doing this for you. But he does still save the child and draws parallels between the child and his own upbringing. There's we see lots of different names of different planes that I think have probably been mentioned in other stories.
Big deep cuts, yeah.
Aranzur, Ilke, Obsidius, Mirankar, Cabralan, so Cabralin, sorry. So there's lots of like interesting things there. I love it when they just drop in other plane names.
Because again, it shows that multiversal aspect of it's not just the same 10 planes that we know.
Yeah, we have Nashi come back. So at one point, Tezzeret goes back to Kamigawa and gets accosted by a Nezumi biker gang. One of them is Nashi, who's Tamio's adopted Nezumi's son. If you've never played Magic the Gathering before, these words mean fucking nothing to you. Her adopted Nezumi's son. And there's a line. This is just fucking chilling. I mean, Suarez is so fucking good. At the beginning of their like little exchange, Nashi tries to ask Tezzeret if Tamio's still alive. There's a big battle, blah, 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 and about 7,000 words later, Tezzeret has Nashi in his grasp, and it says, Tezzeret nodded. She will come for you soon enough. He leaned in closer, and when she does, you will wish I had killed her. Gently, he placed Nashi's head onto the ground, stood up, and walked away. Fucking Tezzeret's a badass! He's so cool.
Cool guys don't look at explosions. Tezzeret's... He's almost like he's the guy who's seen it all, like... And what I like is, even within this story, you see that kind of carnal fear of survival. Like, he's at the edge of so much bullshit that at this point, how can you not have such, like, amazing reactions to things? Like, he's flawed, but he's still got such, like, he's got, like, panache, but he's still, like, he's a douche at the same time. He's multifaceted as a character, and you could write him into any direction, and it still fit within the character that we know him to be.
Yeah. I mean... Going from we'll have to move on. Read that story. I know it's dense, but you will not regret it. Going from one very writer for a proclivity. I can't talk now. We've been going for an hour 30 already. For dense storytelling with a super interesting character, we move to Miguel Lopez.
Yay.
With the story Alone. We all know and love Miguel Lopez. Obviously, they did the Magosi Steps, the Red Route. They did Direction, Purpose, Honor for the side stories from Kaldheim, which is one of the better ones. Did side stories for New Capenna. Did the main stories for the Brothers War. And again, that was like a novella. And has now done Phyrexia Obi-Wan Alone, which is like a direct follow-on from the side stories.
Do you think this was all written together?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Because now, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, this is so... I'm pretty sure the end of his story, because the last one that we read, As Cruel as Necessary, was the one where he's talking with Urza, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of what I think we laud to be one of the better stories within all of that, is that what... Like, the metaphysical interactions of Urza as he's just sparked, having just sparked the... or triggered the Silex, and then how Teferi almost had to, like... go into, and it kind of felt a little bit like Interstellar, of where he almost had to go into that 4D space and kind of find the right point in time to go into that moment of time, and that's where he was able to have this kind of like conversation with Urza, where Urza's not going to remember any of it anyway, and then Teferi gets jettisoned into some random beach, which again has similarities to how Kaito started the story of New Phyrexia on a beach. So that's quite a nice bookend. But then it goes directly into being back in that place again, back in question mark. And it very much, and I said this again before the episode started, and before we started recording, I was like, I just don't understand why you needed to put a bookend from a previous set at the end of the next set, beyond creating this, false suspense of, is it Zalfir? Spoilers, it's fucking Zalfir.
So, we find Teferi on this random beach that we found him on at the end of the previous stories. He is no longer part of the temporal anchor. He's no longer a spirit either, so he sort of feels like he's been sent somewhere else. It was ambiguous as to where he was being sent. Was it out of time? Was it out of space? He is on the displaced, phased out continent of Zalfir. That has been in a bubble of time, and it seems like as we go through the story, so he comes across a caravan after wandering around sort of the wastes.
Naked.
Yeah, he wakes up nude, so he's just kind of going through the wastes and on kind of like a week-long pilgrimage. He hooks up with a caravan. The caravan is a group of traders that have the guards. The guards turned out to be bandits that killed the guards and took their place. So kind of life is just sort of in a turmoil. He instantly gets recognized. So this isn't Zalfir 400 years later. This is Zalfir as he phased it out. But the people of Zalfir are aware that
they're displaced.
They're displaced, and that time has passed. So through the story, he meets up with this caravan. He goes to a local village. He starts working as a fisherman. He gets kind of reinstated back into the religious orders of Zalfir. People recognize him as the Archmage, even when he tries to deny it. People are like, no, we know who you are. No one tries to kill him after the first meeting with the bandits. So it's almost like time has passed for Zalfir, where they understand that he is, like, he's still not loved, he's still not beloved.
He's still the destroyer of Zalfir.
But he is also still the Archmage.
Yeah.
And they understand that there was a Phyrexian war, and it's sort of like, Teferi goes there and sort of starts to realise, it's like, oh, I didn't, like, these people aren't just arrested in their development in terms of their minds, they're just arrested in developments as to their relationship to time, to everywhere else.
Yeah.
And he meets the Queen of Zalfir, and she even goes 364 years later, and we're still facing this threat. So they are aware.
Yeah, that's the thing that's interesting. I don't know, maybe because their amber prisons as well kind of show, and I need to maybe go back and reread, like, old lore. But I don't remember Zalfir being that much, like, more progressive in terms of, like, its military prowess or its magical prowess or whatever. I don't imagine it being, like, it wasn't like, you know, they accidentally blipped out, like, the industrial, like, best continent of Dominaria, and then went, oh, we've just lost our, you know, our brightest and our most powerful. But it does feel a little bit like they're very self-aware. I think they say 10 years. 10 years has passed for them.
Yes.
And they've been preparing this entire time to fight Phyrexia, which is kind of great because it kind of vindicates us of, we were like, is Teferi just gonna phase back in Zalfir? And Zalfir's like, we're ready to fight you, bitches! Because they're very much like,
they're ready to fight original Phyrexia.
Yeah, they're like, kind of show us Phyrexia and we'll show them our axe. You know, they're very, very ready to fight. And I think that's kind of interesting. I just don't understand. For me, the only thing that doesn't make sense with this set is that this story is why it needs to be placed here, because it doesn't set up a great, like, massive narrative cliffhanger that, oh, that's why they left it to put it here, because now that's going to be relevant to the next bit. Having all of this information, everything that happens within the story, because also Curvex kind of just dropped in at the end.
Yeah, so Curvex gets let loose from his amber prison.
The Wanderer.
Well, this is it. So there are two.
Yeah.
The placing of the story is odd. You're right, because it does sort of seem like it's just the end side story and a bunch of disjointed side stories. Where in the last set they were all the same narrative. They were just put in the side story category. La la la. There are two big things that happen here. The first one is that it's another tick on the clock of Teferi's redemption. We're not fully there, but every time we see Teferi, he's one step closer to kind of regaining his space in the multiverse and not having this crushing guilt about maging out Zalfir.
And he's quite specifically even says, like, when he's talking with Sabina, like, Sabina kind of, in his mind, for him personally, forgives him, and that for him
Subira, his wife,
in lieu of having Zalfir there to kind of apologize to and forgive him, he kind of almost took a personal forgiveness from that, and then he realized going to Zalfir is like, okay, I had no right to consider myself absolved of the guilt just because one person was able to get over it. Yeah, you know, I've still got to get the entire
and the more time he mingles with all that. So he's a fisherman in a village for a while, and people there know who he is. He meets up with an old general friend of his. He meets up with the Queen, and at each point they all sort of say to him, "Look, we know what you did. We can't forgive you per se, but you still have a purpose here." And we need to focus on that. I think his general friend's a bit more merciful. He says, we all know about the penitence in the desert, because he walks for like a week to get back to Zalfir's sort of centre. And he's like, look, your transgressions are your transgressions, but we know that you're trying. Yeah. So it's finally giving Teferi, now he's confronted with his problems, this idea that like, even the people who he wronged are like, yeah, you wronged us. There's a problem, we need to solve it. Like, we get why you did it. It was fucked up, but there's a bigger thing than your guilt going on here. And so that's one big thing, is that we get another little notch on the Teferi belt of, like, bringing him back. When he fully brings back Zalfir, and when they eventually come and crush Phyrexia, then we'll have kind of fully absolved Teferi. He can do other things. The next one is the Wanderer, as you said. Well, Zalfir has been phased out. So the fuck is the Wanderer doing there?
Yeah. How did the Wanderer get off of New Phyrexia when the consideration of why a lot of people say, oh, why don't we just planeswalk again since we've planeswalked to the wrong place? It's like, well, if we hit interference coming in, can you imagine how much interference we're going to get going out?
Yeah.
And also, Teferi specifically within this story says that he tries to touch his spark and he just felt a numb twitch.
Yeah.
So his spark isn't working within this phased out. I think I looked at on the wiki, it's considered to be a pocket plane.
Yeah.
Now, what pocket plane means in terms of metaphysics, we don't fucking
Yeah,
know because they don't tell us anything. Whatever they want it to be. But clearly it shows that he can't planeswalk out, but somehow the Wanderer, I don't want to use the word planeswalk, because it's kind of wrong for her. She's blipped. She's almost blipped into it. And then somehow they manage within moments of her blipping in, because they say that she's kind of almost mid-strike. So it clearly shows that Teferi isn't the only person in Zalfir who knows how to do time magic. They're able to create these amber prisons that clearly lock you in place within your action, because she's still like mid-swing.
Yeah.
But he mentions how her face is changing from anger to confusion. It's almost like she's kind of stuck mid-thing going, well, I'm not attacking anyone anymore. I've now been put in this prison. This is strange. And obviously hasn't blipped back out again. So the amber prison she's been put in overrides the instability of her spark.
Yeah.
But how's she come? How is she here?
So it's either like Teferi muses that Zalfir is still connected to the multiverse, and that could still be true. And he kind of says it's bittersweet because it means Zalfir is not lost, which was something that he kept sort of saying in the story. It was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, we're fucked. But it does also mean that if they're still connected to the multiverse, they're still connected to the new Phyrexians.
Yes.
The flip side of that could be that it's the Wanderer herself has her, because she got a bit of respite when she had the reality chip, but then is suddenly like her sparks starting to go all screwy again.
Super erratic.
Now, is this the thing? Because she's not been part of the action, she just keeps getting like a little bit phased out. That her contribution to the Phyrexian war is that she's gonna blip Phyrexia out.
Right. So this is the other thing that's mentioned in one of the stories, is that Kaya, because I think Nohiri turns to Kaya and goes, "Oh, maybe you could have talked to her in your phased out state," and then Kaya mentions "Oh, I hadn't really thought of that, but I guess it's entirely possible because the Wanderer, whatever happened to the Wanderer upon that interference from Phyrexia, puts her slightly out of sync.
Yeah.
And it's the same out of sync that Kaya can willingly go to the point of where she can flex that around other people and get them to planeswalk. And it's the same out of sync that Zalfir is, because it's not, you can't planeswalk to it, but it's still within the multiverse but separated from. Do all of these things all layer on top of each other? Was it a mention of Kaya? And I don't want Kaya just to be the MacGuffin and her magic be able to fix everything, but at least it's interesting because we don't know what this phase shifting kind of really does. We don't really know what the point of the Wanderer not having her, because the reality chip could have just fixed it, right? Narratively, it could have just fixed her planeswalking spark, could have made it once she got back with Kyodai, they've reconnected, everything's fine again. But clearly they didn't fix it for a reason. They clearly highlight it right at the beginning for a reason, and now she's here for a reason.
So this is the thing I really liked them doing with the Wanderer, is that now, once the Wanderer got revealed as being the Emperor, and we got a card...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess it's Emperor's, gender neutral. Yeah, fair. Carry on.
Well, you can have Empress, but they
no, I think I prefer gender neutrality.
They gave her a card art where you saw her face, whereas all previously you didn't see her face, and that obviously fed conspiracy theories and whatnot. So
is she Emrakul? Remember those days?
Yeah. And it was like, as we said time and again, it hasn't actually ruined her character that we've seen her face, and now there is as many card arts of her with the hat as without the hat, or like whatever else. You know, the kind of the mystery. What they've achieved with her is that the mystery is still there, despite the fact we know exactly who she is and how she works. She's still very enigmatic. And there's a line here, and I fucking jumped out my seat. I was reading this earlier today, and I was like, what the fuck? That's such good writing. Where it was, this is Teferi asking, his friend Jabari's saying like, oh, there's another one like you who's here, and Teferi's like trying to muse who it is, and Jabari goes, no, this one is a woman of regal bearing. We have her secured in amber as well, but before we did, Jabari reached out to Teferi again, tapping him on the chest, emphasizing each word. She asked for you. A woman of regal bearing. He knew too many. Could Kaya of Sephilia have devised some way to cross the void of Zalfir? How long have you been outside of this space? And it's like, you know, this description of like regal bearing, this, that, and the other. The description goes on to be like, we have this hat and this sword, and you're like, oh, it's the Wanderer! Yeah. Like, you know, and he even says the word, you will come with me, Aku, to see this other Wanderer like you. And then
Teferi's like, not a Wanderer,
not the Wanderer. It's just, they've really achieved this idea of this kind of gunslinger samurai character where we know what they look like, and yet they're still like brim hat down. Like, so yeah, the other bit of writing, we are running a bit long now. This is the very end section of the story, and this shows just how fucking good Miguel Lopez is. So this is after Teferi's got a plan of action. He knows what's going on. He's kind of lit a fire in his ass to be like, no, I am going to like rectify what I'm going to do. Eshe, who weathered the ages. Oyana, who looked at danger with bravery. Adaya, who longed to build a peaceful future. Subira, whom he had loved and who had loved him. Niambi, whom he had loved and who loved him. Zalfir, with whom he stood, father of the creeds, father of a nation. It's not too late, Teferi said, a fierce grin spreading across his face. The Phyrexians probing through the multiverse had awoken something that their machine minds would learn to fear. Teferi, who would show them that the sun rises in Zalfir. Oh, God,
Yeah.
that is such good writing.
Yeah.
That is such good writing, and especially if you read it from main story through to side stories like a book, left to right. If that's the last line of Phyrexia will be one that you read, bam, into March Machines.
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
go.
That's the thing, right? It's the collision. That we know Phyrexia's succeeded in their penetration of the multiverse. I think that's also something that I maybe would have liked to have seen in retrospect more of, is they described the Realmbreaker succeeding quite well, and they keep alluding to it and talking about it, but it didn't... I would have liked to have seen maybe more of a... There was almost a moment of like, wait, did they just lose? Did the Realmbreaker just make it to the... Oh, yeah, I guess, because then it says, like, oh, you can see the multiverse. I'm like, oh, I guess it did. I was like, well, that felt a little bit understated. There wasn't... It didn't feel like... That's the thing. The moments of, like, oh, shit, are all, like, the good guy bits. And it kind of annoys me that we didn't get that kind of, like, oh, shit moment from the Phyrexians.
That's a fair critique.
Because that little Realmbreaker succeeding should have been the end of a story before then the rest of the next story should have been. I guess it did, because it fell into the episode 4 before we then went into episode 5 and we catch back up with Kaito and Tyvar fighting Ajani and Tybalt. But it kind of felt like it was a little understated, because this is the kind of aplomb that you want, right? This kind of idea of, like, can't wait for next set, because Zalfir's going to come back.
There are some times when I read, and again, this is because of me thing, this isn't necessarily a writing thing, where I read stories and side stories, and I think, cool, I'm done with reading Magic Story for another 3 months, thank you very much. Fucking this, just give me March Machines now.
Yeah.
Now. Where's the story going? Gimme.
Like, don't leave Elspeth wandering the blind eternities. Don't leave Zalfir fade. Like, give me it now. I want to know the next bit. And that's what you want the story to feel like. You don't want it to be like, cool, yeah, done, close book. I guess we'll pick up this later, And I guess a few sets can feel a little bit like that. And again, maybe this shows the success of the narrative arc and the narrative progression of where we've seen a few sets and where we're like, cool, that was New Capenna, nice, some Urabrask shit, cool, and then Neon Dynasty, oh fuck, they completed Tamio, cool, I guess we'll find out who else they've completed next time. And whereas with this we're like, oh, this is building up to the finale.
This is it. We're full steam.
Yeah, exactly.
Loved it. Thought the Planeswalker choices for completion were fine.
Yep. I mean, I'm more interested to see what they do with them now than how they became what they are.
Yeah.
So again, I hope we get a bunch of POV of Phyrexians. I actually really hope we get the POV of the completed Walkers, and then see them interacting with the Praetors rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Because as much as the Praetors are interesting, I reckon we got really cool story from Elspeth and Elish and Ashiok, and it showed a little bit of the interest of Elish Norm. But when you have a one-dimensional Praetor that only has one thing of thinking, like, I'm the smartest, Jintaxius, it's like, cool, there's only so much that becomes interesting. Infinitely more interesting place as the third person rather than the first person.
Tybalt did get squished by Tyvar, but as we've seen with other Phyrexians, they can rebuild them.
Chucked off a bridge, we hear a thud, don't see a body, probably alive.
Ajani's sort of similar vein.
Yeah, like Nahiri dropped the entire Phyrexian arena on top of herself and then just showed up tybalt's
That's true.
So I think Tybalt's probably okay as well. There's no way they don't give us a card for him.
The one last thing before we wrap up I want to talk about is Vraska's Gorgon body. We mentioned it earlier. Now, she is now like the Gorgons are on Theros, which is the very classic lady torso, snaky hair, but with a snake.
So similar to
body.
the Naga from Amonkhet, but not with four arms.
Yeah. Now, she's a Gorgon from Ravnica, where they're more humanoid.
Yeah.
And they've played a little bit fast and loose in her card arts with what her hair tendrils do or are. Like, are they hair? Or do they have mind of their own?
Yeah.
Whatever.
They've never had faces, at least.
Yeah, exactly. But they've always stuck with, like, no, she's got legs. So did the Phyrexians look at her and go, you're kind of snaky? Like, did they make that leap themselves? Or do they know about Therosian Gorgons? Like, what's the deal there?
Is there a degree of completion that's, like, dictated by your own... But, I mean, yeah, like, by your own identity and how you'd like to be? Because Jace grew more eyes, right? More ways to see with all these weird little camera tendrils.
Yeah.
And then Luca just directly bonded with an animal and then became... Does it... Is it... And also, Nahiri's arms turned into swords because her magic is swords. You know? Like, so there's a degree of...
Yeah.
Is it just playing into what your character arc naturally is? Like, one of Nissa grows an extra pair of arms and one of those arms is her staff, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I feel like there's a degree of it just kind of plays towards what kind of character arc you are, but again, she comes from a plane where the Gorgons don't have tails.
The Gorgons of Ravnica are not snake people.
No, so it's interesting that they've done this, because it's like, do they just do it from a whole, well, we might as well take her legs and that's like a big change? Or do they do it because they wanted to make... And also, if you notice, the very end of her tail is the Return to Ravnica set symbol.
Oh, I didn't.
Which is really cute.
That's
like,
cool.
that. I mean, again, it's... I don't know. I think it's probably just they wanted to have her be different, and there's a chance her legs are still under there somewhere.
Yeah, I just wonder, man. This opens up a whole can of worms, even outside of the Phyrexian debate, of like, a Leonin is a Leonin is a Leonin. Do you know what I mean? They're a cat person everywhere. Same with, like, you know... I don't know.
Merfolk being fish people.
Merfolk are fish people. Rocks are rhino people. Elephant people are elephant people. Loxodon, thank you. Gorgons, sometimes they're snake people.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're
not.
just
Sometimes
slithery.
their hairs are snake people. Sometimes
they're
hairs...
not.
It's very interesting. I feel like Gorgon's one of those tribes that they just kind of have to just kind of like go, whatever. With goblins. Sometimes they're monkeys.
Oh, that's true.
You know, so you just gotta...
It's just funny. Anyway.
Yeah, all I know is Spider Kaito in the What Ifs would have been incredible. Actually, let's leave that, because I'd like to talk about the What Ifs when we get to the flavour.
Yeah, I think so.
Because there's some interesting things going on there.
Oh, this is a return to our early days when we used to do like almost 2 hour episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let us know on Twitter @MTFlavouring what you think of the stories and where everything's going now. Tell us if you agree or disagree. Nathan and I didn't agree with all everything on this one. We're starting to have more of those disagreements. The podcast may crumble up around us. Let us know on email, mtflavouring@gmail.com. My personal Twitter is @AndyManface. Nathan's is
@the Fox in the Moon.
Every time I do this, I don't know why I split up the Twitter handles and then put the email in the middle of them. I do podcast Twitter is this, the email's this, our personal Twitters are this.
Interesting.
Every time I do it and I think about it, and now you'll think about it as well.
Oh, well.
And now you'll think about it, dear listener.
Enjoy.
Cool. I need to pee.
Cool. I mean, there's a canal right next to us. That's fine.
That's illegal.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, I have a toilet. It's just a little like water bottle.
Yeah. Well, this could descend. Right. Anyway, everybody, we have been Magic the Flavouring.
See you soon.
There we go. We did it.